Many people are expecting Silksong to be the best Metroidvania ever. Some are even expecting Silksong to be the best game of all time, and while those might seem like lofty expectations, there is a way to see how likely these chances are. We can take a look at the precedent for Metroidvanias over the years when looking at the difference between the first and second entry in the series. Granted, this isn't definitive by any means, but history does always have a way of repeating itself, and at the very least, it will help pass the time until Silksong releases. Also, before heading any farther, I'm aware of games like Hungry Night, but Team Cherry themselves have stated that Hollow Knight was the studio's first game, which makes sense as the previous attempts were more game jams and concepts. So here are 7 relevant comparables that can help us form some type of conclusion. When looking chronologically at these 7 examples, you're going to start way back in the 1980s with Metroid, which scored much higher than Metroid 2 Return of Samus, and also that same year, Castlevania scored drastically higher than Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest, which was a very big departure from the original. We then take a leap for a few decades with Guacamelee, Axiom Verge, and Salt and Sanctuary all performing much better than their sequel. The only 2 exceptions where the sequel was received better was with Ori and the Will of the Wisps and SteamWorld Dig 2. Most of the examples that received better scores didn't stray far from the original formula and mostly played it safe by refining what was already there and building upon a strong foundation with some new features and abilities, and that all seems to be the safest path for a sequel. The only time where this didn't occur was with Metroid 2 Return of Samus, where there were plenty of new additions that would remain key staples in the series, including new suits and weapons, but most of the gripes were due to the Game Boy limitations removing a lot of what made the original so great, including the feeling of isolation that you get from the audio, the visual cues that differentiate areas, which led to a reduction in atmosphere, which has been the shining star for the series. I have played most of these games but not all, and I likely missed some other examples from the genre, but if we're using just these examples, the original was better over 70% of the time, with only 2 sequels performing better, which only accounts for around 29%. The thought process here is that after seemingly coming out of nowhere with the original, people start to generate hype and anticipation of what the sequel can be, and it's very hard to improve upon the original without people being upset that it's just more of the same. The flip side of the coin is that too many things get changed and people become unhappy that the sequel strayed too far from what made the original special. It's a very tightrope to walk, and I wouldn't want to be in that position. The takeaway here is that there is a 71% chance that Hollow Knight will be received better than Silksong, as it currently sits around an 88 average.